So you said black framework, terrorism, and then the environment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, would you mind repeating your roadmap once now? Black framework, terrorism, environment, and then my partner's going to do PTSD, replan, and solvency. Okay. To start, I'm going to clarify our black framework debate. We're not making this a race issue. What I said in prospects, and I'll say it again, it's not necessarily the skin color or the body itself. Yes, the black body is the unhuman, and that is, you know, on the lowest end of the spectrum, and it allows for that comparison and that oppression. But what we're saying is that the exclusion of blackness and, you know, the inclusion of anti-blackness within the debate space is what needs to talk and be in the center of the debate, and the AF does not do that. They use these policy agents that created the problem in the first place, and what we're saying is that through this black framework we can you know, effectively change these issues. Again, like they don't include the anti-black. Yes, they talk about people who are being oppressed, but they're not talking about them through their eyes. They're talking about them through policy eyes, which are inherently racist because they were built, because when you go through policy, you're going through the white, middle-aged eyes that created this country and society, this governmental structure that they would like to continue to use on the back of slavery. And just because we are talking about slavery does not mean that we don't encompass other types of oppression. And that their argument that our black framework is stereotypical is somewhat is just like another example of anti-blackness. We're not saying, oh, you know, like we should talk about blackness specifically because we are black. Yes, we experience blackness, we would like it brought into the debate space, but it is on a much greater scale than how we are perceived. In the world itself, the world itself is anti-black, and we feel that it is a worthwhile issue that should be brought into this. And the AF can challenge our framework, which they've done. I don't understand like how they're saying that there's no challenge. It doesn't make any sense. It's unpredictable. What we're saying is that we can't talk about the resolution because this is a prior question. Framework is a prior question in itself before we can go and judge these other instances within the debate. I'll extend our resistance 12 card, which says that silence, you know, the refusal to confront these inequalities and the complacency that they want to use when they use the USFG, which they admitted actually caused the problem that they're using the government to fix. That is a form of anti-blackness. This idea that this is always the wrong form to talk about anti-blackness and to interrogate anti-blackness is inherently anti-black. You know, we need to use this form, and that's what we're doing with our framework debate. I'll extend our trial for, which talks about how the framework that they want to place against ours is inherently flawed because of the fact that it's based on a racist structure. Our Berkeley 08 card talks about blindly calling on the USFG. They said that the USFG caused these problems. The USFG is inherently flawed, so why do we continue to use it and perpetuate these problems? Just because we're solving for like right now for their advantages that we caused through the USFG in the first place does not mean that the overall root cause is the issue. We're saying that the interrogation of anti-blackness needs to be the center of this debate because it's the root cause of all these problems. The anti-blackness in government is the root cause of their terrorism and their environment. And we'll go back to they want to talk about fairness. What we're saying is that when you make the debate space so narrow-minded that we have to pretend to be white middle-aged men, which is what, you know, the policymakers, you can say that there are black people and there are women in the government, but that basically, even if they have those bodies, they're seeing it through those narrow minds. It's not fair to us that we should have to relinquish our blackness in order to fit into their debate, and we have a very educational aspect because we're trying to critically look at the policy and the way in which policy is made, because it's bad, and just working within a flawed system is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Now to move on to their terrorism and environment advantages, I'm going to group their advantages together because there are small issues in the overall issue plaguing the world. The terrorism with this stretch that a nuclear war will occur at some point, even though these drone strikes are happening right now. And I don't see a nuclear war happening right now. It doesn't make any sense. But I mean, we'll put it in there. Their environment, which is also a stretch because, like our key, if you don't have their Hank So 9 card says that environment is key to a relationship and all that. But if there are people that don't even feel that they're a person considered within the society, then how does having an environment to stand on any importance? So I'm gonna group this together. The fact that we do not focus on the oppression created by the fact that they don't focus on the oppression created by this black-white spectrum, but that even though they don't want to say it, it includes them. Any kind of suffering that they have felt, any kind of suffering that anybody else has felt, this black-white spectrum includes them, because oppression comes from your level of blackness, like that blackness that puts you kind of on the outside of society. That is why you were able to depress. But the fact that we are not talking about these, it doesn't allow us to actually attack the root cause, and that is why our framework is so important. The privilege given to the white body that makes these plans in Congress, the agents that the app has chosen to use are inherently wrong. Privilege is key to components in how they institute their dominance. Macintosh 88, United States opens many doors for rights, whether or not we approve of the way dominance has been conferred on us. To resign social systems, we need to first acknowledge the denial surrounding privilege. And the USFG in Congress solve these problems, don't really solve these problems, and the problems the neg set in and as the neg set in the process, it creates the wrong. The USFG would like to solve these problems by taking kind of like a vacation in the eyes of the oppressed, but this is bad. This is merely cultural tourism. Whiteness allows for the privileged tourist to vacation in the identity of the exotic, others secure and a promise to return to safety and comfort in the end of the adventure. This is Nakamura 2000. Tourism is a particularly apt metaphor to describe the activity of racial identity appropriation. The activity of surfing, an activity already associated with the tourism mindset of most Americans, constitutes a form of identity. Tourism allows a player to appropriate a racial identity without any risk associated with being a racial minority in the real life. In cross-cultural passage, this contrasts the possibilities to play the pleasure of white travelers in an incursive world and controlled by European empire. So what we're saying basically with our entire framework is that it's a prior issue before we talk about. We have to challenge the institution. We have to challenge the USFG because it has shown and they have said that the USFG creates these problems, and it's because they're inherently racist, because they deem some bodies desirable and some bodies not desirable, that they are able to use drone strikes to threaten the environment, to increase. I mean, their terrorism advantage, I mean, it's a stretch, but I mean, that's the reason for like these ills, and we can solve for these problems, but if we don't cut it out at the foundation, which is anti-blackness, which should be the focal point of this debate, then we can't really solve for anything. And that is the most important part of this debate. They don't adhere to our framework, so they should lose. The violation, again, was that they used the structures that promote anti-blackness. And I'll also extend our Mills 98 card that says that not talking about these issues creates the exclusion, and the structuring logic is different. I'll extend our Berkeley 12 or Byrd 7, which of the impacts, their impacts are all inevitable because they work within that system, and it creates those divisions. Any attempt to gain the ballot unfairly forces blackness outside the debate once again, which is the institution that they're working within.
Cross-ex?
Alright, your very first card in your 1NC regarding I want to say that you had like A and B on the card.
Yeah.
What exactly did B say?
B says that it's a your plan is a violation because it doesn't interrogate the structures that promote anti-blackness.
You group together our advantages and say there are small things. So that's you directly saying. Does that mean to you then that people dying is a small thing?
I'm not saying that people dying is a small thing. I'm just saying that when you act like this is the cause of everything, when it's over here, you can't really solve for that. And on the whole basis of it, the anti-blackness is the reason why they are being oppressed in that way in the first place.
But how does that give you any right to group together all of our advantages when they have nothing to do with the oppression of blackness?
It's all the oppression of blackness. Your terrorism about the Glazer the card, which talks about how it creates more enemies, those terrorists themselves. They're all it's all because of this idea of anti-blackness that places these people outside. The future of civilians, they're
Okay.
yeah, these civilians that make up the capitalists, they're anti-black.
Can you tell me then, please? Can you explain then all the internal links in your framework? Because you jump from blackness, from the exclusion of blackness, to how it's inherently bad for policy, but you never provide any specific links that go from A to B to C to D.
Oh,
you
what do you mean links to you?
No, your internal links.
Our internal
In your
links.
own framework argument.
I don't really understand what you're saying. I mean, what we're saying is that the framework is key. Using the USFG and other
I understand that, but that doesn't answer my question. You don't provide any links as to how you go from the exclusion
You
of
don't
blackness
understand how
to how
anti-blackness is like exclusion. Like
no, I
is
understand
exclusion.
how it's exclusion, but you don't provide any links as to how it goes from exclusion of blackness to how that's bad for policy. We can't go by your hearsay on that.
I don't understand what you mean. How that's bad for policy? You're saying
Do you not understand what internal links are?
I understand what internal links are. I don't understand why. I mean, maybe it's the attitude that I'm getting. Like it's overcasting like your question.
Well, I apologize for that. Then I should try to be less aggressive, but you're not.
We're saying that we're saying that anti-blackness creates an outsider. That outsider cannot participate in society.
Couldn't you argue that? Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, go ahead. It's
Just
your
because you
process.
mentioned that through our plan, we can't solve something over here that's realistically over here. So are you arguing the solvency of our plan?
I'm saying, well, I mean, my partner's going to go and talk about your solvency. Do you want to take cross-examination?
No.